This GT of Divide podcast coming at you with another episode on Eclipse Day 4/8/2024. They say the next eclipse ain't coming until 2044, so 20 years from now. They're saying we'll have another eclipse. But I'm going to talk to you. We've been kind of going through some kind of a biblical journey called Set Apart, what it means to be set apart. Kind of went over some of the hard things when it comes to being set apart, such as traditions, some personal stuff, the way God wants you to worship, the way he desires you to worship. We talked about John 4:23, Deuteronomy 12:30, Jeremiah 10:2, Mark 7:6, one of my favorite verses in the Bible. So we talked about those. Now we're going to talk about commitment today. So our big thing is commitment, and we're ask some hard questions. We're going to talk about some hard things. But I'll start out by talking about Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players to ever play the game. When we talk about commitment, you think about what it takes for you to be able to be at the best at your craft or at the top of your game, or to set yourself apart, right? Being set apart takes commitment. And so you look at Kobe Bryant. He's the first one there to practice, gets his free throws up, gets his shots off. He makes sure he takes a set amount of shots every single session. There were players that wanted to beat him to the gym, but they couldn't beat him to the gym because they would get there earlier. And guess what? Kobe was already in there 30, 45 minutes into his workout, right? You look at Tom Brady, greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Same thing, his commitment to his craft, right? He was committed to his craft. Nothing could set him off the track that he was on because he was so committed to his craft. Peyton Manning, another good one. LeBron James, some of the greats. You look at how committed they were to their craft. Tom Brady locks in during and even after the football season is over, Tom Brady was so committed to his craft that he ate healthy, exercised, kept his body 100%. LeBron does the same thing. That's why these guys were able to play for so long, is because they were extremely committed. So you think about commitment and what it means to be committed to something, what it means to give your all to something, what it means to be 100% bought into something. So I'm going to go real quick and get the definition of commitment. Like, what does it mean to be committed? So basically, number one, in commitment, an agreement or pledge to do something in the future. So now let's look what it means to commit. Not commitment, but just to commit. Carry out or perpetrate when you commit. So when you think about commit, like it literally said in there, carry out a crime. So when you make a decision to carry out a crime, you commit it to it, right? So commitment and commit are two different things, right? But they're one of the same, because in order for you to get to commitment, you have to first commit to something, right? So you start with the base level of I'm going to commit to this thing, and then your commitment is the continuation. You're continuing to do that. You've already pledged to commit to this thing, but you're continuing to do that, right? And you don't get off the track. If you commit to cutting 10 pounds, you don't stop working out and eating healthy until you cut 10 pounds. And even after you cut the 10 pounds, you still got to keep working out and eating healthy. Otherwise, that weight comes right back on you. So then there's the commitment to keeping it off. So you committed to losing weight, eating healthy, but when you get to that point, now you get to pillar one, or you get to the first base in this baseball game. We'll think of it like that. When you get to first base, now you have a commitment. You already made the pledge, but now the commitment is the discipline to continue with whatever you have decided that you commit to. So it's the discipline to continue. Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." So you commit to Him, and your plans will be laid out for you. He gives you the playbook, right? But first, you must fully commit. And so now we'll dive into what does it mean to fully commit to something. I heard when I was at church this past Sunday, one of the middle school kids was talking about commitment. He's talking about how his team, you have a team, they have a basketball team at the church, and so there's 8, 9 young men that play on this team. One of them had bad grades, so he couldn't play. So now they go down to 7 men playing on this team. They got beat. And what we learned in this instance is that they were committed to each other. So there's a commitment individually, but there's a corporate commitment too, right? So when you're committed to other people, you are saying that I'm going to show up for you when it is needed, right? So think about it like that. So when you commit to your brothers on the football team, you're committed to doing your job, putting the work in, the effort, getting the grades, whatever it takes to show up and be able to play on the court on Saturdays. You're committed to that. Football players, they commit to their teammates, and that happens throughout the week. So you get to see the final result on Sundays when they play on the field, but there's so much that they commit to throughout the week. And so there's so many intricate parts of commitment that when you talk about committing to something, it starts with the pledge, but then the discipline falls behind it, but then the continuation falls behind it, right? Discipline is the continuation of your commitment. So whatever you decide that you commit to, establish that first, and then the plans are laid out. So the Lord says commit to the Lord whatever you do. So in everything you do, commit it to the Lord, right? And He will establish your plans. 1 Kings 8:61 says, and may your hearts be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by His decrees and obey His commands as at this time. So again, not only is it commit to the Lord, but it's and may your heart be fully committed. So your heart must be fully committed to the Lord. So you live by His decrees. A decree is an official order, right? Something that is handed down from an official. So now the Lord our God put Himself in this official status. I'm official, and I'm handing down these orders to you. Here's the playbook. So in Proverbs 16:3, it talks about committing to the Lord, and He will establish your plans. But in Kings 8:61, He's handing down those plans now. You've committed now to the Lord, but now give Him your heart, and here's the plan. Live by His decrees and obey His commands. So He's handing down the orders now. Those are the orders. That's what decree is, official orders coming down from an official. So God put Himself in the official position, said, here's the orders, here's my decrees. And those are the things that He's talking about here, we've talked about previously in other podcasts. Right, so we've already talked about some of the things that He has handed down to us and said, hey, this is how I want this done. So, commitment. Let's think about commitment another way. What about a marriage? That's a commitment, right? It's a commitment. You're committing yourself to another person. My last podcast, I talked about being alone, right? When you're alone, God can really put the work in with. He can really sculpt you in the times when you're alone, because guess what? You're coming straight to Him. When you're alone and you have the opportunity, that you get to show the commitment that you have to the Lord, because now you get the chance to go to Him alone. If you only praise the Lord when you go to church, right? If you only praise the Lord at your youth group or your youth camp or your Bible study, if those are the only time, if you don't get the alone experience with the Lord, it's hard to say that you have a relationship with Him. Because you think when you think about commitment to a wife or a husband, right, your spouse, you come to them, you bring it to them, right? So you come have that conversation with that person. That's how you learn about a person. You don't learn about a person from another person, because you have to have the understanding yourself. And that's where the commitment comes in here, is that it gives you the opportunity to gain the understanding yourself. For you to be okay being alone, like I said in my last podcast, when we're alone, right? When you separate yourself from all the other things, because at the end of the day, when you're chosen one in the Lord, when the Lord has chosen you, you will feel some isolation. You'll be isolated. And you have to be okay with that, because you're committed to something bigger, right? You're not committed to trying to be like everybody else. You're not committed to doing what everybody else does. You're not committed to making people feel good, because sometimes you're going to have to make people feel bad. Like, that comes with the territory. Sometimes you're going to have to speak the truth, and the truth doesn't always make people happy, right? You're not always going to get a happy outcome from the truth. And so when you're committed to something, you stay focused on the task at hand, whatever it may be. And whatever the Lord may put on your heart, that's the task at hand. He will put it there, and He will make sure that you have the means to get it, because He said He will establish your plans. All you got to do is commit. And I think it's hard. And I think a lot of people think that they committed, but they haven't committed. And I think that a lot of people think that commitment is simple. It's easy. I'm just going to just commit this right here. Or I'm going to commit this, set aside this amount of time. This is my allotted amount of commitment time. No, when you say commit fully, that means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you're sleeping, you're still committed, right? Just like a marriage. Just like a marriage. When you're committed in a marriage, right, you committed that your life together. When you go to sleep, you're not unmarried all of a sudden when you're sleeping, right? When you go to work, you're not unmarried all of a sudden when you go to work, right? When you're out with your friends, you're not unmarried all of a sudden. You're committed. That sticks around full time every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes it makes 25 hours a day. I don't know how it does, but it does sometimes. But think about it. So when you're committed to something, it is all the time. It is not some other time, right? And if we get it to a point where you're committed, and sometimes when you're committed, when you're isolated, when you're chosen, you will get called things by fellow religious people. Part of being committed means you keep your eye on the prize, because at the end of the day, it's people talking. People will talk to you. People will call you crazy. People will say, man, you know what? You're just different. Micah Tyler said he wanted to be different. When he's saying, I want to be different, I want to be changed, till all of me is gone, right? Till all of me, the flesh in me is gone. And all that remains is a fire that you created, Lord, right? So he put the fire in you. That is full commitment. Are there consequences of commitment? Yes, there absolutely is, because you will seem different than everybody else. And you know how you know when you get the feeling that you know that you're committed? Even people that are close to you will call you things. You'll get called things. People were close to Jesus. You don't think people that were believers called Jesus names, right? You don't think that people that were believers stood there when he was put up on that cross? Onlookers. That's what they call them. They call them bystanders. They call them bystanders. That's what they call them. I had a class on bystandership, and that's what they call them. People who are onlookers who aren't going to do anything. People that were believers, called themselves religious people, stood there and watched them die. Just because you're religious doesn't mean you're fully committed, right? Being fully committed spiritually, right? Physically, emotionally, you're giving it all to him. And so when he calls you to go speak to the homeless people in your city, you're going to go speak to the homeless people in your city. When he calls you to speak to the youth in your city because violence is rampant in your city, and you just go to church every Sunday, and then you guys get your feel-good moments in church, you don't do nothing, and then the teens are still killing each other out here, but you're not investing in the community. You're not going out in the community. That's not fully committed. That's only committed to making yourself feel good. I'm gonna go to church, I'm gonna feel good, and I'm gonna go home. That's it. When people, chosen ones, the people that are chosen by Christ, are needed out in the community. I live in Wichita, Kansas. We have a huge homeless population out here. We have a lot of teen violence out here, a lot of 14, 15-year-olds killing each other, a lot of anger, right? We have a lot of fatherless homes, right? There's a lot of issues out here that need to be addressed, that need to be touched. If it's not a burden on you as a quote-unquote Christian, then what are you actually? That stuff, you should feel that 100%. When you're 100% committed, you feel that, because that is not how the Lord desired it to be. So when things are going wrong and things are going bad and things are getting tough and evil is winning, you feel some sort of something cooks up inside of you that you got to go to battle. And part of going to battle is actually going to battle. People think going to battle means going to church or going to your group meeting, wherever it may be, or going to your partner's house and you're studying over there. That's not going to battle. That's preparation for battle. But you can't just prepare for battle and then never go out there and fight the war, because there's a war going on, right? And we need more committed spiritual people that are led by the Lord to go out in the community and be able to make change. Because right now, the people that are making change in our communities aren't committed, or they have different agendas, right? If you're focused on what you need to be focused on, and you're trying to take care of business in your own community as a Christian leader, as a spiritual leader, as somebody that's fully committed to the Lord, his plans, he's handed you his plans. There's no way that God wanted us to just go to church every Sunday and then we don't go out and then help the homeless, or we don't go out and mentor some kids, some teens, bring teens out of violence. But we sit on our hands consistently because we're not fully committed. We sit on our hands consistently because we're not fully committed. And so until you become fully committed, you're just going to sit on your hands. You're not going to go out there and play the football game or the basketball game. So think about if Tom Brady decided, man, hey, I'm just half committed now. I don't want to go play on Sundays. He did everything it took to go out there because that was the battle. The preparation, right? He did the prep during the week, but he wasn't going to sit out when it was time to go out there and get it done. There's too many Christians sitting on the sidelines watching what's going on in the community, not doing anything. Is that what God called us to do, to sit on the sidelines and watch? Is that God's plan? I don't. If you think that's God's plan, show me that in the Bible. Maybe I misinterpret or whatever people be saying, or spin it. I've been told I spin it or whatever. I'm like, okay, spin it, whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's what you feel. That's what you feel. Me, I've been called everything but a Christian. Been called a Jehovah's Witness. Had pastors call me other names and other jazz, and I'm like, the isms and schisms of church, right? While these same pastors sit in church on Sundays, they sit up there and give and motivate people, but then they themselves don't go out in the community where they're needed, right? If we need more committed leadership from the Lord, why aren't we going out in the community taking care of business? If your pastor doesn't go out in the community, then you are following somebody who's going to sit on their hands. We're not called to sit on our hands and just sit back and watch. There's a war going on out here, and if you're not prepared for battle, then you may need to go find yourself a new general, because your general's not getting you ready. A true general passes the play down, says, hey, this is what we need to do, equips his troops, and then his troops go out there and go to battle. A true general does not sit back on their hands and watch as the community suffers. And so for us, when it comes to full commitment, we are fully committed to those that are around us, because it said love your neighbor too. So we can't just sit here and watch our neighbors suffer and say that we're fully committed, because he commanded us to love our neighbors. And what do y'all think love your neighbor means? Just watch them and watch them as they fail, watch them as they fall? No, you got to go out there, lend a hand, because that's what Jesus did for us. When we were at our all-time low, there was no path to God for us. Jesus came and made a way. When he got crucified on the cross, he came and made a way, so that way we could have a path to God. Through him, through Jesus, that's how we get a path to God. And so when you're talking about full commitment, ask yourself the question, am I fully committed? Am I out here in the battle with the people that need me? Or do I just sit on my hands and watch? If you sit on your hands and watch from the sidelines, I question your level of commitment. And you should question it too. At the end of the day, God didn't call us to just sit back on the bench and just wait and see what happens. He also didn't call us to just say he's going to do everything for us, because he's not going to do everything for us, right? He gives you the play, right? He said he will establish your plans. He didn't say he was going to do your plans. I don't see anywhere in the Bible where the Lord said, I'm going to do your plans for you so you don't have to do nothing. I don't see that nowhere in the Bible. So obviously you have to do something. And so if you're not doing anything, then you're not doing his plan. You may not understand his plan. So maybe you need to go back to the word, right? Recommit to the word before you get to the commitment of what he's asked you to do. So maybe you need to recommit to the word, go back, look through it, interpret it differently, or maybe talk to somebody who may interpret it differently, or talk to somebody from a different walk of life. If you're a Methodist, go talk to a Pentecostal. If you're a Baptist, go talk to a Methodist. You know what I'm saying? If you're a Methodist, go talk to a dang Jehovah's Witness. Like, one thing Jehovah's Witnesses get right is that they go out. They at least go out in the community, right? That's part of what the Lord commands us to do. We have to be out there. You can't just be in your bubble and then think that you're fully committed, because all you're committed to is the bubble. Being committed to the bubble is not being committed to the Lord, because the Lord did not command you to just sit up in a bubble and sit on your hands like this. Like, I'm just going to sit on my hands and we're going to wait and just see what happens. Spiritual warfare going on out here, and the people that are equipped to help with the battle are just going to sit back and watch. we're comfortable watching. We just want to get motivated on Sundays. We don't want to learn the war. We don't want to get prepared for battle. We're not battle tested. We're not about that life. So we just going to sit up in here in our building. And then I'm going to go home. I'll see you guys on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday, or whenever they do their Bible study. I'm going to see you guys on the Bible study or the youth group day. I'll see you guys then. Bye. See ya. No outreach to the community. Churches should outreach to the community. If your church isn't outreaching to the community, then they must be committed to themselves. Because if you either outreaching to the community or you're outreaching to yourself. At some point in time, you got to outreach to something. If teens need you, go get the teens, right? If the homeless need you, go get the homeless. I'll tell you one thing I've seen in my career. I work a lot with the homeless people in Wichita, Kansas. The Catholics be out there deep. The Catholic people are out there deep. Water, food, clothing, blankets, whatever. They're out there deep. Granted, I know why most people are homeless. I get it. I understand it. But at the end of the day, they're still homeless. They still have a need, right? If they're drug addicts, they're drug addicts. But the Lord can bring them out of that. But maybe your little piece of love that you gave them, right? You give them this blanket. Maybe your piece of love, you get to speak a little bit about the Lord to them. There's a homeless guy that spent 20 minutes chopping it up with me one time, and he was talking about the Lord. And I learned more from this dude than I ever have in my entire life. This dude was at the bottom of the barrel, down on his luck, nothing else to lose. Like he had already lost it all, and he's talking about the Lord. And I tell you, in that conversation, I learned more from that man than I have from any pastor with their theology degrees or college degrees or whatever. I learned more from that guy because of his basic experience. Because some of y'all never been down. Let's be honest. Some of y'all never been down before. Some of y'all been up y'all whole life. So y'all don't have empathy, right? Because part of empathy comes from experience. Part of having sympathy for people, being an empath, it's experience. I've been down, so I can understand what it's like to be down. I could go talk to that person that's down. Because I know what it's like to not have nothing. And so we must recommit to what the Lord has asked us to do. And then once you get the commitment, go out there in the community like you're supposed to be doing. And then outreach. You have to have community outreach, right? We can't just go overseas and take care of people overseas when people are suffering. There's a spiritual warfare in our backyard. But we want to go overseas and we want to go help people overseas when people in the United States of America need our help. People in your city, Wichita, Kansas City, Missouri, Oklahoma State, wherever, like Dallas, Texas, right? We're good at sending people out across the ocean to other countries, but we're not good at outreaching in our own backyard. If it's a person that's in need in my backyard, I'm going to go take care of that person, right? I'm going to go take care of that person. Back in biblical days, they didn't really have the means to outreach like that to go all the way over here anyway. So I mean, it's courier pigeon. They had to put the note on a carrier pigeon and hope that he got to the right place, right? The word traveled because of what the Lord was doing in his area, where he was doing in his backyard. If he saw somebody in need in his backyard, he didn't go way the heck over to another country to go help them. He said, I'm going to help this person that's right here. He humbled himself and helped the person that was right in his own backyard. That is the level of commitment that we need to have that we don't have. So you don't call me a Jehovah's Witness or whatever y'all want to call me. I don't even care. Call me a follower of Jesus. I don't need none of them denominations or names that y'all be, them cliques y'all be in. I don't need none of that. Because if it's a man in need in your backyard and you don't help him, you walk past the man that's in need to go help somebody else way the heck over here. Spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Churches probably spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year outreaching to other countries, but they don't spend much in their own backyard. It could be a homeless person in the church's parking lot, and the church people will walk by that person, and then those same church people will pay their money to send somebody overseas. That's pathetic. That's a lack of commitment. It literally is a lack of commitment. They did a study we were talking about, and so I had this active bystandership class that we took for law enforcement, and they did a study on clergymen. So these are clergymen, so they're going to college, they're going to get their degrees, they're priests. And so they had a person in duress, in extreme stressful situation, And what they did is they were testing to see. So they did with the first group just to see. They had a test. They had to go to the other side of the campus. They put a person into rest in between point A and point B to see how many would stop. What percentage of clergy would stop for this person that's in need? And so they said, hey, you got to be at your next test. You got 30 minutes to get there, right? 30 minutes to get there to the other side of the building to get to your test, right? So they said, man, you got to get there quick. The percentage of clergy that stopped for this man that was in the way, that was in duress. I don't know, they didn't give details on, was he hysterical, screaming, bloody, like they just said this guy was in duress. Clearly, the average human being can see that this guy was in duress. And it was crazy because we talked about it. So the first group that they sent, there was no timer. You just got to get over there. You got time to get over there. Just close up your books over here, get over there. You got to go take that test. 45% of the clergymen stopped for that person that was in need. These are pastors in our churches. 45% stopped for that man that was in need on their way to the next destination. Now they put a timer on the next group. They say, hey man, you got 30 minutes to get to the other side. 30 minutes to get to the other side. And I remember, you got a lot of law enforcement in this class, so we're sitting here and we're like, man, like we would stop. We're law enforcement. Like we would stop. Like we are taught, we are trained in these situations where we know, okay, we got to stop. And so we're thinking, okay, man, like, I mean, it's the clergymen, it's the religious people. Like they're going to probably stop more often than the people that aren't religious. So then they were like, okay, so now you got 30 minutes. You got to get over there, man. You got to get over there. Guys in duress in between you, but you got to get over there. They didn't know. So they walk out to go to the next class. 15% stopped for this guy back here. My friends, that is the world that we live in today. That's the lack of commitment to what the Lord has actually called us to do that we have. We have a partial commitment where we can commit something, or if I'm not in a hurry, I'll help this person if I'm not in a hurry. If I don't have something else to do, somewhere else to be, I'll help this person. If I have somewhere else to be, I got something else to do, I'm not going to help this person. No, I got to keep it going. Sorry, man, you're on your own. I got to keep it going, right? The Lord stopped for anyone and everyone, no matter what he had. It's not like the Lord didn't have plans or he didn't have stuff that he had to get done, but when he needed to stop, he stopped. Then you say walk like the Lord, be fully committed, right? But most Christians aren't even fully committed. Most religious people aren't even fully committed. They're committed to themselves. It's easy to be committed to yourself and do what you want to do. But if there's a bump in the road, how do you handle it? If the youth in your community are in need, how do you handle it? Do you just sit on your hands? We just sitting on our hands. We're gonna just go buy a new building. Let's just sit on our hands now, and we're just gonna relax and not do shit. Excuse my French. Because it pisses me off, literally pisses me off, that this is the type of religion, this is the type of teachings in religion that we have in Western church. We'll help anybody else, anybody that's church related, but people that aren't church related, we just, good luck to you guys. As if we're better than them. So think about that as we finish up here. Commitment. What does it mean to be fully committed? And what is the playbook? What is the decrees? What are the orders, the official orders that have been handed down to us? And if you got questions, you should probably go read the word because it's in there. Spin it, twist it, whatever they say, whatever they want to call you. If they calling you names, it's probably because you're doing something right. And people will call you names because they're jealous of what you're doing, right? If they're jealous of what you're doing because they're like, man, this dude's doing it different. And they know the Lord did it different. So like, man, this dude's doing it different. So I gotta call this dude something. But what you don't call that person is a Christian, which is crazy to me. So a person that individually follows Christ in their own way, is in their own lane, is set apart, is fully committed, doesn't get called a Christian. That's crazy. Christians don't call them a Christian because Christians know that they're not like that. That's the crazy part. So you can take the Christian tag off of me, call me a follower of Jesus. And I'm going to keep it simple like that. So, guys, I hope that you guys go out in this week and find your commitment. If you see a homeless person, talk to them. If you see a teen in need, or you just see a teen in general, go have a conversation with them because they need more leadership. They need more mentorship from us to stop the violence in the city of Wichita or in your city. You may be in Chicago where there's even worse violence than Wichita. You may be in New York City. You may be in Miami. You may be in Los Angeles, California. There are some huge cities with huge amounts of violence and huge amounts of homelessness, huge amounts of drug addiction, right? That's evil. That's spiritual warfare, right? And church and Christians are just sitting back watching. We're equipped with the skills, with the knowledge, what we're supposed to have to go out here and combat that, but we just gonna sit back and watch it. If you're sitting back watching it, you're not fully committed. That's all I gotta say. So you can get mad at me, you can put a thumbs down or whatever, but if you like if you like the message, thumbs up, subscribe, share, and we will keep pushing it out there to you. We desire for us to be set apart, for us to be different, for us to make a change in the world, the United States, China, wherever you may be at, Europe, wherever you may be at, make a change. If there's a homeless person, go talk to him. Buy him a water. Something as small as that can go a long way. If there's a young person, talk to him, mentor him, see how they're doing, see what's going on up here in their brain, right? As the world changes, we have to adapt too, but we can't be afraid to go out to battle. When it's time to go out to war, you put your commitments in, you work through the week, go out to war, guys. Don't sit back on your hands. We're done with the relaxation days. We're done with the looking good, and we want to go over here and do ministry overseas, but we can't minister in our own backyard days. There's too much ministry that can happen within your own neck of the woods that's not happening. And that's because churches aren't fully committed. They're committed to themselves and their own growth, but they're not committed to actually imparting the word into the people that are around us that need it most. So I pray that you guys have a safe week. This is G2 The Vibe Podcast. I'm out.